everything here. We're going to start off with a grade 10 question. Just remember, grade 11s, you're more than welcome to do these calculations. Always good to practice, but grade 10s, this is aimed at you guys. Let's have a look. We've got this question about ratio. So it says Mandy and Joshua work together on market day at their school. They split their profits according to the ratio 2:3 respectively. Now, this word respectively, for anyone that's wondering, just means in that order. So the 2 first and then the 3 second. All right. So respectively means in the order that we say it or type it out here in this sentence. So 2 first and then 3. And that also links up to the names. So if you've got Mandy and Joshua, Mandy's first and Joshua's second. So Mandy has the 2 and Joshua has the 3. So that word respectively links up to the names as well. So if you're wondering who's who, Mandy's first and Joshua is second. They make a profit of 500 Rand. Now we have to calculate the amount Mandy will receive. Now, before you guys get going, I know you're going to get cracking straight away. How is this part of patterns and relationships? Can anyone tell me which relationship this ratio will represent? We learned about relationships in the past. Can anyone tell me what kind of relationship a ratio like this may represent? Anyone want to speak to us or put it in chat? What kind of relationship is a ratio in this respect, in this question? Does anyone know? Or has the end of the term dreariness gotten to you?
I think everyone's brain is already in holiday mode today.
Are there end of term feelings or holiday mode? All right, let me remind you. Let me give you a hint. If we double the 2, what will happen to the 3? So if we have 2 is to 3, if we double the 2, what will happen to the 3? Think about it. If we double the 2, what will happen to the 3? All right. Bianca's got an answer there. Janu's got an answer. It'll be squared. Okay, we've got some answers coming up. All right, let's have a look at that. So if we double the 2, times it by 2, what will we have to do to the 3? All right, so if we double this 3, if we times it by 2, all right, we're multiplying, we're going to get 6. Very good. So the new ratio will be 4 is to 6. Okay. Now, if we had this in a table, because it's easier to see the relationship when we have it in a table form. All right, I'm just going to write the numbers. I'm not going to put any names or headings here. So we have 2, and then we have 4. All right, just starting the table off. And underneath we have 3. And underneath the 4 we have 6. Okay, what if we times the 4 by 2 again? Then we get 8. What will the 6 become? Anyone? Good, Sonia. What you do on the left, you do on the right. Very good. So if we double this 4 to 8, we will get 12. Very good. All right. So if we had to plot this, how would the graph look? If we had to plot this on a graph, how would it look? So if I had a little XY axis here, what will that line do? Anyone? Very good. Now we're getting there. Okay. So it's a linear relationship. All right. And it's increasing. All right. You could even say it's direct proportion. So as the one is getting bigger, the other is getting bigger. If you increase the one by 2, you got to increase the other by 2. All right. Or multiply by 2 and multiply by 2. So as you increase the one, you're increasing the other. Okay. So that's the type of relationship we're talking about here. All right. Increasing, linear, and you could say direct proportion. All right, so that's the type of relationship we have here. Okay, so just because it's a ratio doesn't mean we can't describe the relationship here. All right, ratios also have relationships. But let's get back to the question. So calculate the amount that Mandy will receive. All right, I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes to do this. We've got 500 profit altogether. That 500 is altogether. They split it in the ratio. How much will Mandy receive? All right. Leshlo with an answer there. Good. All right. The speed is incredible, Leshlo. I hope the quality is good. Remember, good speed and good quality. Good, Chiamo, with the units and the decimal places. Very good. All right. We got the answers coming in. Very good. Very good, Depua. Bianca, well done. Does anyone want to turn their marks on and tell us how they got this? You guys are getting answers. Anyone brave enough to turn their microphones on? Tiamo, I hear you. Speak to us. Oh no, there goes Tiamo. She's embarrassed. Anyone? No worries. No worries, Tiamo. Anyone brave enough to tell us how they got their answer of 200? Are you all going to be hiding today? Ah, there's Sambulo with some calculations. Very good. Well done, Sambulo. Okay. Now, Sambulo's got this. Let me write this down. So it's 2 divided by 5 times 500 equals an answer of 200. All right, very good. Let's have a look at that. Now, what I want to draw your attention to is this number here, 5. Where on earth did Tambula get the 5? Where did that 5 come from? Can anyone tell me? Tambula said 2 divided by 5, but the question doesn't even have a 5 in it. So where did this 5 come from? Tambula, don't you want to turn your mic on and speak to us and tell us how you got the 5? Ah, there's Giamo, there's Letabo. All right, they're giving us calculations in chat. All right, see these two parts of the ratio. Very good. You need to add them up. Okay, so I'll show you how we do that. I'll write it in blue. So we're going to say 2 plus 3. There's 2 and 3 parts in this ratio. That gives us a total of 5. Okay, so that's where the 5 comes from. So we got 2 out of the 5. So Mandy is 2 out of the 5 parts. Well done, Batande. So 2 out of the 5 parts for Mandy. So that's why Sambulo's got there 2 out of 5 parts in total for Mandy. And that 2 out of the 5 can form a fraction, and you multiply that fraction by the 500, and you'll get an answer of 200. Very good. Well done. All right. Nice, easy one to warm you up. Let's get into the meat of it now. Now we're going to dive deep into the pool. All right, we were playing in the shallow end, but we're going into the deeper water. I hope you guys are ready. Here's a scenario. All right. So it says Lorata is planning to go on holiday in a minibus. She estimates that petrol will cost her 800 Rand to get to her destination. The graph below, and I'll show you the graph in a moment, the graph below outlines the relationship between the amount of money that Lorata will have to pay and the number of people traveling in the minibus. All right, so 800 Rand for petrol. And then this graph tells us for the amount of petrol, how much petrol she have to pay depending on the people, the number of people in the minibus. Okay. If at any point you guys want me to go back to the question, just shout. But here is the be there in a minute. All right, we've got gremlins in the system again. Just hold, bear with me, guys. I'm gonna just unplug and then replug in here. All right, the gremlins in the system. Computer's also on holiday. I've not given it any ice cream lately. All right, there we go. Let's go up to here. Here's the graph. All right, so that is the graph. It's the number of people versus the petrol cost. So we can see here on the y-axis, we have the petrol cost, okay? And right here at the top, you can see that the top value here for one person is 800 Rand. So what this graph says is that if you have one person in this minibus taxi, the petrol will cost you 800 Rand. Okay, now at the bottom, we've got number of people. So as the number of people is increasing here, we have different costs in the minibus taxi. Okay, so as the number of people is increasing here at the bottom, so the cost for the minibus taxi ride is decreasing. Can anyone tell me what kind of relationship this is when as the x-axis value is increasing, the y-axis value is decreasing? Anyone in chat want to tell us what kind of relationship is this? Well done, Siamo. Good stuff. Well done, Letabo. Good, good, good. Well done. Yes, there we go. All right. So it's an inverse relationship, but sometimes inverse proportion or indirect proportion. Okay, very good. There's Sonia with indirect. Well done. You guys have got it. Okay, so it's indirect. So so you see at the end on the x-axis, the number of people is increasing, but the cost on the y-axis is decreasing. So when one increases, but the other decreases, we get this curve. All right, and that's called an indirect proportion or inverse proportion relationship. All right, good stuff, Avi. Well done. Okay, so we understand the relationship now. Let's have a look at the questions. All right, so I'm going to move to the side here quickly. We'll come back to the graph. There we go. So we have three questions. Move up. There we go. 3 questions that I want you guys to do. Number 1, determine the number of people traveling with her in the minibus if Lorato uses 400 for her petrol. Now, we don't even have an equation for this. So we can use only what the question has given us so far. So it said determine the number of people if Lorato uses 400. The number of people for 400 Rand worth of petrol. So I'm going to scroll to the left and down again to have a look at the graph. Can anyone tell me the number of people for 400 Rand? There we go. You guys are on the money today. Your quick fingers. Well done, Anifa. Well done, Janu. Good, quick fingers today. So how do we get this answer? Does anyone want to tell me how we get this answer? You brave souls. Anybody? Somebody? Sakile, yes. All right, Sakile. Sakile, how are you?
Hi, I'm good,
You
and
well?
you, sir?
I'm good, thank you. Tell
Yeah.
us, how did you get this answer?
Okay, so on the graph, as we see Lorato's petrol cost, and then we see the 400, and then we look to the side, we see the point, and then we go down from the point, and we see a number 2.
There we go. Well done. Thank you very much. Excellent. So to read off the graph, they give us 400. So we go to the 400 on the y-axis. We go to the line, and there's a dot there for us to look at. And then we hit that line or that dot, we go straight down to the x-axis, and we see that it lands on 2. So we can use the graph to read this off. Okay, well done. Very good. You guys are doing well. Okay, so for question 1, we can say determine the number of people. We can say 2 people. All right, that's read straight off the graph. Now, just something about this type of question where they're actually hinting that you should use the graph. They could have used different words. They could have said, use your graph to determine the number of people. They didn't. Maybe you guys can see the relationship already. Maybe you're looking at the graph, or maybe you've got an equation in your head. They just said determine. All right. Be careful if the question says use your graph specifically. If they're saying use your graph specifically, then you see the blue ink that I've put on the graph. You need to show them how you got your value. All right. So don't just write an answer down. Go to the graph there, draw on it there, especially if they say use your graph. They actually want you to go into the graph, draw a line across from 400, draw a line down, and show on the graph what answer you're getting. Okay, and yeah, we're just saying determine, so we don't have to worry about that. But if they say use your graph, then you must mark on your graph to show how you're getting your answer. Okay, now some of you might have a formula ready to help you with this, but here comes question 2. Write down a formula that can be used to calculate the petrol cost based on the number of people in the minibus. What kind of equation could we draw up? I'll start it off for you. Okay, so we need to calculate petrol. So I'm going to say petrol cost equals, all right, and they say write down a formula that can be used to calculate the petrol cost based on the number of people in the minibus taxi. Anyone want to try this one out? You're welcome to raise your hand, or you can put it in chat. I'm sure you guys are typing furiously to type out a formula here. So petrol cost, to get it, you have to do something with the number of people in the minibus taxi. This is challenging, isn't it?
Teacher Dale, I wonder if maybe 800 as a full tank has something to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if she's going to be paying 800 Rand by herself, I wonder if 800 and the number of people will have something to do with
All
it.
right. So those two things, Teacher Coco is giving you a clue. She's saying, look at 800, and I'll write you the number of people. She mentioned those two things. We've got to do something with that. All right, Sambulo. Very good. Very good. There we go, Latabo. Nice and typed out. But see, it took a while. You guys are typing these things out. Very good. So we're going to divide. Okay. So we take the 800 and divide by the number of people. All right. Now we're going to test this. Okay. So this is a formula that we can use. Now let's test the formula to see if it works. Okay. So let's say that we have, like question 1 says, 2 people. All right. So we change the number of people here. I'll put this back up. But if we change the number of people to 2, then the petrol cost will be 800 divided by 2, which is 400. And that's what question 1 said, 400 petrol, and we got an answer of 2 people. So it does work. It also works if we start off with just 1 person. Okay. So if you take the 800 Rand for the minibus and divide it by 1, that'll cost you 800 Rand because you're only 1 person. Okay, very good. So our formula works. All right. Now, often when they ask you to write down a formula, they usually then ask you how to use that formula. So here comes question 3, excuse me. Calculate how much the petrol cost will be if 9 people travel to the minibus taxi. Now, in the exam, if you got a question 2 and you're not sure how to do this, how to write this formula, I'm sure when you get to question 3, you're going to try and look at the graph and try to work this out. So let's have a look at the graph to see if this can help us. We'll use the formula, but let's have a look at the graph. Calculate how much the petrol cost will be if 9 people are in the taxi. So if we go to our graph now, will the graph be able to help us out here? We do have 9 on the graph, but the line doesn't extend to that. Now, what you guys might do, I'm sure, if you don't know how to do the formula, is you might draw the line out like that, and then you might read it off. You could get an answer that's quite accurate. Okay, so if you extend the graph line, you follow the curve there and you extend it out, and then you could try and use your graph. You could get an answer like this. So if we did this way, let me try and be accurate. We'll test this out to see if this will work. So I'm going to try my best to extend this line. I hope that's correct. We get to this point here at 9, and then I'm going to draw a line across. I'll make it a red one so we can see it better. So we're going to draw a line across from that 9 there, and I'm trying to be parallel to the horizontal lines there as best as I can. There we go. All right, that's as good as I can get it. Okay, so there's a value over here on the y-axis that we could have a look at. Let's say it looks like it's about 75. All right. So remember that 75 Rand. Okay. So you could use the graph like this. The line isn't drawn. You want to use the graph like this, but in this case, the formula is actually going to make it a lot more easy for us to find. And you guys have got answers already. So let's use the formula. So the petrol cost using our formula is 800 Rand divided by 9. That's the number of people. All right. And we're going to get the calculator to do the work for us. I'm sure you guys did that. So we got 800 divided by 9. and we get an answer of 88,8888889. All right, we're going to always round off to 2 decimal places. So we're looking at the second 8. Is it changed by the third 8 behind it? Yes, it is. So there's going to be 88,89. All right, so I'll write out the full one first. Put a whole lot of 8s here. And then I'll show the little funny equal sign that we use it to show that we're rounding off. All right, so it's 88,89 Rand. Okay, so comparing my graph estimate, I said 75, and the formula is giving a much more accurate 88,89. Just remember that. Okay, you got to be very careful. Well done, guys. You guys are getting good answers here. Just don't forget to show your second decimal places. All right. So the formula is definitely giving us a much more accurate answer. We could try and estimate from the graph, not very easy as we saw. So the formula definitely works a lot better here. Okay. All right. So there was the indirect relationship graph, and we learned how to create a formula for that. All right. Any questions? Anyone want me to go over it again? Any questions? Or are we all good to move on?
I have one question, Teacher Dale.
Yes.
Would we get penalized if we didn't round off to 2 decimal places in this case?
So the instruction at the beginning of the exam is always round off to 2 decimal places unless stated otherwise. So we always try and round off to 2 unless the question is specific and say leave as a whole number. I think you might be penalized once, especially if the question specifically says round off to a certain, like round off to a whole number or round off to 1 decimal place. They could penalize you. If you don't, I don't think they'll take a point, or sometimes they do. They make a decision and then they do it for everyone. But we just, to be safe, we always show 2 unless the question says otherwise. Okay, so it's not 100% wrong, but we are trying our best to make sure that we don't lose any marks, don't give them any option, don't give the marker any way to get us to lose marks. All right, so Kile, how do we figure out the formula? Okay, good question. All right, so we used the graph to help us here. All right, and if we can move over to the graph, there we go. So we use the graph to help us here. Now I'm going to remove a whole lot of stuff first so we can better look at this graph. Good question. So the first thing was the question gave us that there was 800 Rand at the top, that first point, and that was for 1 person. All right. Now, if we look at the second point here, this is going to give us a much better idea. We went from 800 to 400. All right. And we got a value of 2. So what you could do is you could use a table, because I know you guys like using a table for this. All right. So we could, let's get a little table out here, and let me make it this color here. Let's get a table out here, and let's have a look at the values as they stand in a table. All right. So if we have 800 Rand, that's for 1 person. If we have 400 Rand, that's for 2 people. And there's another value here, 200 Rand is for 4 people. Okay, so these are the values that we're getting off the graph. So we need to try and figure out what is happening to the rands there at the top based on what we see at the bottom here. Okay, so if we look at the first change from 800 to 400, that value was cut in half, okay? And it was cut by this number underneath here. All right, so this 2, if you take 800 and divide it by 2, you'll get 400. So let me remove the red here and show you how we can work it out. So 800 divided by 2 gives us this 400 Rand value here. The 800 divided by 4, if I draw an arrow all the way across, whoopsie, If I draw an arrow all the way across, 800 divided by 4 gives us this 200 over here. So we're trying to find a pattern in the values that they've presented us in the graph to help us formulate this equation. Now, some people have practiced these indirect proportion relationships so many times that they know that you have to divide. Okay, but if you don't know that, you can look at the values that they give you and try work out a relationship between them. All right, that's the best advice that I can give. Okay. All right. Let's have a look at the next question. Okay, so grade 10s. I'm glad you guys got to see an indirect relationship. Often they give you direct linear relationships, but I'm glad you guys got to experience an indirect one. All right. Let's move on to grade 11s. Here we go. Okay, now grade 10s, this doesn't mean that you shut off. This is a challenge for you. And I know you guys like to be challenged. So let's have a look at this question. All right. Lorata sells her chip twisters at a local flea market. Her rent and transport costs per week amount to 450 Rand. Okay, so she's got a business where she's selling something at the flea market, and her business has got some expenses. We've got rent and transport costs. Okay, and they will come up to 450 Rand every week. Right, so every week she goes to the market, she has to pay the market organizers a little bit of rent, and to get to the market, there are transport costs. So it costs her 450 Rand just to get there and set up her store. All right, and she's selling chip twisters at the market. So let's have a look at 131. Write down the formula that Rolata can use to calculate her weekly costs to produce and sell chip twisters. If the total cost to produce one chip twister is 2 Rand 50. Write the formula in the form. Weekly costs equals 450 Rand plus something. Okay. So we're creating a formula here, just like we did in the previous example, to work out her weekly costs. Okay. It's 450 Rand plus something. Now, the second thing that is in the formula here, where does it come from in the question? Well, we've got 450 Rand here. Okay, and those were from these expenses, rent and transport. And then in question 131, they talk about another cost, all right? Cost to produce one chip twister is 2 Rand 50. Okay, so there's two costs involved. There is a rent and transport cost, and then there's a 2 Rand 50 cost. Who can tell me, here's a question. These costs here, or expenses, I'll write the word here, expenses, to help give you a clue. These expenses here are given a special name. Who can tell me what type of expenses those are in Lorato's business? Okay, who can tell me these expenses here, the rent and the transport costs, they're given a special name. Ah, there we go. Well done. Fixed. All right, very good. Those are fixed expenses. Okay. Very good. Well done, guys. Well done. Then what is the cost or expense over here to produce one chip? That's also given a special name. It's also an expense. A cost is an expense. Well done, Batane. So the transport and rent is fixed. What do we call this expense here? The cost to produce one chip. I'll give you a clue. Oh, okay. You can call it a production cost. Okay. So in these kind of questions in businesses, we always have fixed cost or fixed expenses. And then there's another word over here. It is the cost to produce. Good. If the top ones are fixed, is the cost to produce one chip also fixed? Will, in 1 week, think about this. In 1 week, will the number of chips that she produces be fixed? Will she sell the same amount of chips every week? That's a big clue for you. Variable. Well done, Latabo. It is variable. Good. It varies. So the cost to produce the chips, or the number of chips that she produces, and the cost in total because of that will vary depending on the number of chips. So these here, or this cost, is called a variable expense. Okay, so changes depending on the number of chips. Non-fixed, Ave. Good intent. Non-fixed. It's not fixed, it's variable. All right, very good. Okay, so these expenses will change, or this cost will change depending on how many chips she sells. I keep on wanting to say ships. She's not selling ships, she's selling chips. All right, so let's build the formula. Her weekly costs in total now, which is going to be the fixed costs and the variable costs, is equal to 400 Rand plus what? How is she going to work out what her variable costs will be? What could I put there? What could I write there? How is she going to work out what her variable cost would be? The fixed cost is always the same, but the variable cost or the variable expense will depend on the number of chips she sells. And I know you guys are typing out. I can't hear it, but I know you guys are typing at something. So I'm going to wait a little bit for some answers here. How is she going to work out the variable cost or the variable expense? What calculation can we do? Don't worry, Sonia. We know you type fast. We know you always give good answers. Okay, so Keela, there's an attempt. Good. And I can see you put the question mark there, like saying, sir, is this okay? All right, we're getting there. Okay, here's the question again. What could we put here in the formula to explain the variable cost? All right. So this is going to explain the variable cost of the variable expense. That goes in this part of the formula here. But we can't just, you see, the fixed cost doesn't change. It's 450 every week, but the variable cost, the variable expense will depend on something. Ships. Chips. Chips you get on ships, or chips shaped like ships.
She's selling chips on a ship. I think
on a ship.
That's what,
Okay.
yeah.
She's selling chips on a ship. And I say that 50 times fast. All right, Sambula, I think you've on the money there. Okay, let's have a look, Sambula. This is what Sambula has written. All right. So I'm just going to erase these little bits over here. So Sambula says R2.50 times N. Now, Sambula, do you want to turn your microphone on and tell us what that N means? I'm not sure anyone understands what your N means. Do you want to turn your microphone on? We can do it for you if you want. So, Willa, don't you want to explain to us? You've written an N there, and everyone's like, what is that? What is N? Oh, I think Sambula Shah. Anyone else want to guess what that N stands for? All right, so you've written 250 times N. What is the N? Any value. Okay, so it's a variable. Like, don't be scared. N is par. N is a constant term. Good. Sure, these are the core maths people here. All right. N is a constant. N is any value. It's a variable. All right. Good. So what will it represent in our story? Okay. So what will N represent in our story? It's a constant variable. Good. You guys know your core math stuff. But what is N in our story? You have to say 250 times something, and then you'll know what her variable expenses will be. Oh, I can hear people typing. Don't worry, Relato. Don't worry. We're going to help you out now. How many she sold? There we go. N equals how many, almost said chips. How many chips she sold. All right. So N is how many chips she sold. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the N. Okay. And I'm going to write here chips. All right. That should make more sense. So let's look at the whole formula here. So her weekly costs when she goes to the market and she has costs like her fixed expenses and her variable expenses. The weekly cost will depend on number one, her fixed expenses, which is 450 every week, doesn't change. Every week she goes there, before she sells anything, she has to pay 450. All right. Now, the other expenses is how much it costs to produce a chip. And it costs her 250. So if she wants to work out how how much is my variable expense cost going to be? She's got to think about, oh, how many chips am I going to sell? All right, so it'll depend on how many chips she sells. So I'm going to write there 250 times chips, 250 times however many chips she sells. Excuse me. So she can use this formula and determine what her weekly cost will be depending on, number one, her rent and the transport, which is fixed, and also depending on the number of chips she sells. Okay, so it's 250 for however many chips she sells. All right, now that we've done this, usually the follow-on question relates to this. So let's have a look. It says 132, hence. Now what? The Janu's already got answers here. Yo, hence, 132. Can someone tell me when they write the word hence, what are they trying to say? It's fancy English, hence. You know, what are they trying to say? What are they trying to say when they say hence? Anyone want to unmute and talk to jot down? Okay. Jot down, which means write down. Okay. Good. Anyone else? What does hence mean? Why do they write the word hence in this question?
Is it kind of like therefore?
They use the word good. Another word they use is therefore.
I'm just saying words. I also don't know what therefore means really.
Yeah, it's fancy English.
Yeah, it's fancy.
Therefore, and hence. You know, it's very fancy. We don't use those words.
Yeah, therefore, we don't use those.
Therefore, hence. Okay, we don't use this fancy English, but there is a reason why they've put the word there. Okay, so when you see the word therefore or hence, all right, what they're saying is, now that you've done the question above, 131, you're going to use the answer there in question 132. So that word hence, when you see it, it means take what you've done now in 131 and you're going to use it now in 132. All right, so it's a clue. I need to use what I've done in 131 to help me in 132. All right, so here comes the question in 132. Hence, or otherwise, calculate how many chip twisters she will make if her weekly costs are 1,700 Rand. All right, now let's write the formula again. Okay, so I'm just going to write the word weekly costs. I'll write weekly costs. To get weekly costs, you need 450 Rand. That's her fixed expense. And you also got to do 2.50 Rand times the number of chips she sells. All right, so there's the formula. Let's look at the question. Calculate how many chip twisters she will make. Now, they'd want us to work out this part of the formula. All right, usually we're working out this part of the formula here, but they want to work out the chip part of the formula. Well, if they want us to work out chips, they've got to give us everything else. They've got to give us all the other numbers, don't they? So what they did was they gave you the weekly costs. They said, if her weekly costs are 1,700 Rand, how many chips will she have to make? All right, somebody, anybody, somebody, talk to me. Somebody out there. Don't worry about calculations. How on earth are we going to get to these chips here? How are we going to get to these chips on the right-hand side of the formula here? I know you guys are typing. All right, Chiamo got number one, subtract 450. Sakile, it will involve division. Very good. Jeez, these guys type fast. Sonia's got 2 steps there. Subtract the 450 and then divide. Chiamo was step 2, divide by 250. All right, very good. So with Bianca, yes, that's how you solve a formula, right? To divide by both sides. So you guys were told in core maths you got to balance the equation out, all right? And the people have also mentioned that you need to do 2 steps. Number one, I need to create some space here. Number one, subtract 450. Okay, so there's the formula. I'm going to take the 1,700 Rand and I'm going to subtract 450. Step 1. Get the calculator, let it do all the work for us. 1250. All right, now we've taken care of the fixed expenses. Now we've got to deal with Yeah, the variable expense now, the 250, all right? And in the formula, you have to times by 250, but we want to get the chips by itself, so we get to now divide by 250. So that's why you guys are saying, I think we're going to have to divide. You're right, because the 250 was times in the formula. So now we're going to divide by 250. And I know you guys are already typing answers out now because you're that fast. So 1250 divided by 250, 500. And Sambulos has got an answer in to show that it's correct. Fantastic. Okay. So this 500 here, it's 500 what? What is it? Are these rands? 500 what, guys? Ships? Chips. Thank you, Sonia. Chip twisters to be more accurate. Not ships, not chip twisters. No, but but Dandy's got caught up in it as well. Ships. All right, very good. So you guys did two steps. Number one, you got rid of the 450 first, which is very important. We have to subtract it. Why did we subtract? Because if we look at the equation, it was plus. And then you guys said, once you've subtracted the 450, then you need to divide by 250. Why is it divide? Because in the formula they gave us, it's times. Okay. So if we wanted to work out weekly costs, we would do it like normal, 450 plus 250 times chips. But if you want chips now, we've got to get rid of all these other things, the 450 and the 250, using these calculations here. So the question says, how many chip twisters? Chip twisters, 500 chip twisters. Chips twister, yes. Ship sister. All right, you're getting confused here. All right. Next question. Ooh, I'm even worried about showing you guys this, but let's have a look and see. There's a lot of writing. Oh dear. 1.4. The graph. I haven't seen the graph yet. I'm going to show you the graph. The graph showing Lorato's weekly income from the sale of chip twisters is drawn on Annexure A. Lorato's weekly income is drawn on Annexure A. So there is the graph for her income. This is not costs now. This is income. How much she gets in. Right, so on the y-axis, we've got the amount in rands, and on the x-axis, we've got number of chip twisters. Okay, and they've plotted the graph for you. They've got an equation, maybe they drew a table, and they plotted this line for you. So they're saying, guys, this is the income that she's getting into her business now. So there's the income shown on the graph. Let's go back to the question. Use Annexure A, use this graph here, to draw on the same graph, the graph showing Lorato's costs to produce and sell chip twisters. Okay, so let's try and draw this out on the graph. Okay, now we're going to draw the costs on here. I'm going to use red. Can someone tell me, I'm going to start the graph here on the left-hand side, obviously. Can someone tell me, for 0 chip twisters, what will the cost be? For 0 chip twisters, what will her weekly costs be? You can use the formula to help you. All right, we had a formula here. Look at the formula and think about it. For 0 chip twisters, what will her weekly costs be? Okay. I will bring out this formula and write it out in the front here and make it look nice and neat for you guys, because that's going to be the best thing to help. All right, we'll remove all the funny things. Whoopsie. All right, so plus there, and then we need to times here. Okay, and on the left, this is weekly cost. I'll just write the word cost. You know what I mean. Okay, so what will the costs be if she sells no chip twisters? Sabulu, you're very close. So the 2 Rand 50, we'll have to multiply it by number of chips. But if she sells no chips, you're going to say 250 times 0. All right. So if we look at the graph down here and we want to look at 0 chips, there you go, Lucidi. If we look at 0 chips, all right, so down here at the bottom, 0 chips, if you look at the formula again, if we put 0 in here, that'll be 450 Rand plus 2 Rand 50 times 0. Now 2 Rand 50 times 0 is 0. So it's just going to be 450 Rand. Okay, so for 0 chips, this will just be 450 Rand because 2 Rand 50 times nothing is nothing. So the cost if she sells no chips in a week are still her fixed costs, which is 450 Rand. So this graph must start at 450 Rand. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit to try and be accurate. So I've got 600 there, and I've got a mark there, a mark there, a mark there, over there. So I want to be halfway is 500. That's 500. So half of that is over there. Okay. Now, let's do 100 chips. No worry, don't worry, Lataba. Don't worry. Let's go back to the formula. 100 chips. What will the cost be? All right, Sambula's got 700 there. So I put 100 into my formula. All right. 700, good. Now I hope you guys are using a calculator. And why I say that is because when you build a formula on the calculator, you can actually save it, leave it there. Okay. And I'm going to use a bracket because, you know, Teacher Dale likes to use brackets to tell me and the calculator, hey, I want you to do this part first. Okay, the calculator usually is clever enough, but just to make sure, we're going to say, do the 250 times 100 first, and then add on 450. Okay, so if we put in 100 in there, we're going to get 700, just like you guys said. Well done. All right. So for 100, I need 700 Rand. So now I'm going to put a dot over here. Okay. Now I want 200. All you need to do is go back to your calculator. You guys are probably typing it out already. Let's change that 100 to 200. And I'm sure you guys, there we go. All right, so you guys have got it. So it's 950. All right, I want 300 next, please. 1,200. Okay, how did we get that? We just change it to 300. Good. I need 400 next, please. 1450. Good. 1450 is over here. I need 500 next, please. 17. Good. I know you guys are just tapping away now. 17 is around here. And then the last one we'll do is 600. So I'm sure your formulas are on your calculator and you're just changing the chips, the number of chips, 1950. Very good, guys. Well done. All right, 1950. Let's do it over here. Okay. Now, let's have a look. I'm going to zoom out a little bit at the dots we've plotted. Who can tell me what they notice? Good job, guys. Who can tell me what do you notice? There's two things that I'm looking for here. What do you guys see? A point of intersection between the two. Very good. We have a point of intersection between the two. Good. Very good. Well done, Bianca. Anything else that you notice about these red dots, all these dots here that I've plotted? What else do you notice? There's a point where it intersects the blue line. Good. What else? Well done, Taco. You know what that point is. A break-even point. We're going to talk about it now. What else do you notice about these red dots? There's something very basic about these red dots. What do you, when you just look at them generally, what do you notice? They increase. Very good, Sonia. Good. What else? How do they increase? Direct increase. Good. Very good. Well done, Lwazi. Direct increase. Good. Okay. So now if I had to actually join these dots, whoopsie. I'm joining all the dots. And then make a straight line. You know, there are two relationships shown on one graph. Very good, Sakile. Right, so this cost relationship, when I plotted all these points out using the formula, it gave me a straight line. Okay, now, it doesn't happen every single time, but often in these type of questions, especially with a break-even analysis, you often should see your dots go up in a straight line. Now, this is very good for you because if you try and draw this line and you see, for example, that you go down like it, there's like a dog leg, you know, a kink in your line, it goes crooked, all right? Then you need to go check your calculations again because usually there should be a straight line on your graph, all right? Because it increases, we'd be increasing by 100 chips every single time, all right? So it's the same increase, and we're getting an incremental increase in our cost value as well. So it should give you a straight line in your answer. All right, so check your graph. There should be a straight line. All right, now we've done what they've asked. We've plotted the line. Here come some questions. We'll try to do 1.5.1 after 152, but I want to have a look at 152. How many chip, because as a businessman, this is the critical point, a businesswoman, sorry. How many chip twisters must Lorata sell in order to break even? Now, what is break even? Can someone please tell me, what does break even mean? Can anyone turn on their marks? Raise your hand. Sakile. All right, Sakile, you should get an option there to turn your microphone on.
Yeah.
There we go. Well done. Speak to us.
Okay, so it's used in business in order to determine that exact point at which the business income equals the business expense. In this way, businesses are able to optimize their profits.
Oh, you sound like a business lady. You sound like a businesswoman. The word optimize. Optimize profits. Fantastic. Yes. Well done. Exceptional answer. So at the break-even point here, where the lines crossed over, okay, we call this the break-even point. This is where your business will break even. Your income will equal your expenses. You're not making any profit and you're not making any loss. You're breaking even. No profit, no loss. What you want to do is go beyond this. You want to go to this part of the graph here. All right. So this part of the graph is the part you want to be on. At this part of the graph, after the break-even point, your income is more than your expenses. See, the blue line is above the red line. That means your income is higher than your expenses. You're getting more money coming in than you're getting money going out. And that's when you start to make profit. So this right-hand side of the graph here, where the income is higher than expenses, that's when you're making profit. So business people do this investigation and they work out, where will we hit the break-even point? How many chips do I have to sell to break even? Because before this number of chips, you're actually making a loss because your fixed expenses are always there. So you have to cover them. So you have to sell a certain number of chips to break even. Okay. Now the question says, how many chip twisters must Lorata sell in order to break even? And as soon as I move down, you guys are all going to shout at me. How many chips must she sell to break even? I'm sure everyone's typing furiously. Any second now, those answers are going to come up. How many chips must she sell to break even? There we go. Ba, 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 ba. There we go. Well done. Okay, it's 300. How do you get that? We go to the break-even point where the income is equal to your expenses, and you draw a line down. Let's make a different color. You draw a line down from the break-even point to the number of chips. Okay, and we can see we hit exactly 300 chips. So she has to make 300 chip twisters a week. And only when she starts making more than that is she going to start making a profit. Sure. That's a lot of chips. I mean, a lot of chips. Okay. Sure. Grade 10s and 11s. What a question. I really enjoyed this question because it shows you that if you want to own a business and you have fixed and cost and variable expenses, you got to actually make a certain amount of products to break even, to actually start making a profit. Okay. But Tana, that's a lot of chips. Okay, that's a lot of chips. Ew. If I was Lorato, I might consider reducing my costs somewhere along the line. She's going to have to work very hard. Okay, so
Or
from
maybe
this,
make my chip twisters cost a little bit more. I think I'd sell them for a little bit more.
or you could make your chips sell cost a bit more. Yes, you could sell them for more than R2.50. All right, if you sell them for more than R2.50, then their break-even point will be lower down. You would have to make less chips to start breaking even. Okay, so as a business person, you can look at a 20 Rand each. Oh my gosh. So as a business person, you can actually look at a question like this and start thinking, how am I going to start making profit? Because I can't make 300 chips, reduce my fixed expenses, or increase the cost per chip. Decrease the cost per chip, sorry, decrease how much it costs to make your chip, or increase how much it costs to sell your chip. Okay, very interesting investigation. All right, guys, we're going to call it a night. I was going to say Dave, we're going to call it a night. And Teacher Coco is going to put up the pace poll for you.
Please answer the poll before you head off. Don't run away just yet.